Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel and back to my Happy Halloween series. I'm so cheesy. Today I want to talk to you about another spooky book that I read. This one is called Stranded by Bracken McLeod. So this book is the story of a ship full of men. They're on board the Arctic Promise, and it is on its way to resupply a drilling platform. The main character's name is Noah. Do you see what he did there? Noah is on the crew of the Arctic Promise. The boat is captained by Noah's ex-father-in-law named William Brewster. There is not a great relationship between Noah and Brewster. Noah is kind of the outcast crewman. People don't respect him. People don't take him seriously because of an accident a year ago that they feel Noah is responsible for, and it resulted in the death of their former crew member. When the story opens, the Arctic Promise is trapped inside of a pretty brutal storm, and the crewmen are scrambling around to get the ice that's building up on the ship off, and you get a really good introduction to Noah's treatment by the other crew members. So he is sort of banished to below deck for doing what he thought was best, and while down there he discovers that there's something in the engine room that's on fire. He puts out the fire just in time to get knocked out by the way that the ship is being tossed around in the storm. When he comes to, the ship is in a very dense fog, and they're not making any forward momentum. It's explained to Noah that all of their communications are down. They can't call for help. They can't do anything. They are literally stranded. What we learn is that the ship has become surrounded by ice, that the sea around it has formed into ice that is unexplainable. Also, everyone in the crew, with the exception of Noah, is becoming very ill. It starts with fatigue and maybe some casual cold symptoms and turns into whatever it's called when you're like coughing up blood and stuff. The situation is serious. Like, shit is very real on this boat. Regardless of how Noah is treated, he is still always trying to find solutions, and he's always trying to do what's right, and he's always trying to save people and do the right thing and be just a good guy. And Noah is incredibly likable in this book, just saying. His father-in-law, however, is an idiot, and he will do things against anything that Noah wants to do just out of spite. He has no rational judgment when it comes to situations, especially if Noah has an opinion on them. And so the captain of the boat burns up the engines trying to free them from the ice and makes their situation even more dire. And in the end, Noah is forced to take a team and travel across the ice to some shape that they have noticed in the distance. They have no idea what it is, but they're going to try to reach it. Upon arriving at the shape, they realize that it is another ship in the same situation as theirs, only this one is abandoned. But it has been surrounded in ice, and it has actually started to lean and maybe sink a little bit, and it's being overcome by the ice. And there's one man that appears on the ship, and he's scavenging it for additional supplies, and he says, the rest of my crew on the Arctic Promise is on the drilling platform. And Noah's like, this is not the Arctic Promise. I'm on the Arctic Promise. And come to find out, the man that Noah has encountered is Connor, the guy that died in Noah's place 1 year ago. Basically, this book at that point turns like, what? People are seeing shadows, people are sick, now there's a dead guy, and apparently the boat there's an exact duplicate of the boat, and come to find out there's duplicates of every single character. They're just a month maybe ahead of the characters that we were getting to know. And it all becomes this very trippy, very strange, completely original storyline at that moment. Now, I don't want to give anything else away. I've told you a lot already, which is the unfortunate part of the book. Everything that I've told you gets you through like the first half. And I don't like to reveal that much, but in order to tell you why the story is captivating, I felt like I had to tell you where I was going, where the story is eventually going. The first bit of this book is interesting. You're on a ship with a crew. Bracken McCloud presents all of this information in a very intelligent way. You buy into all of it. I don't know if it's true because I've never been on a boat like that before, but the way that Bracken McCloud writes about the crew and the ship and the storm and it just sounds all very knowledgeable, like he just stepped off a fishing boat yesterday. In reality, Bracken McCloud is a martial arts teacher and a philosophy instructor. But anyways, this book is divided into 3 parts, and the first part is kind of how they get there. The second part is kind of like, what are they going to do about it? And the third part is madness. I can honestly say that this book has the most exciting last 80 pages or so that I've read in a while. Part 3 is trippy, crazy, like what the hell is going on right now? I really liked the end of this book. I do have to warn you about one thing. If you read Stranded, you're not going to walk away with an explanation. You're going to know what happened, and that's the point, is knowing what happened, but you're not going to know why. Any other book, that would frustrate me to no end. But there's something about Stranded that I walked away from it, not even realizing that I didn't have a reason for this stuff. It makes sense to me that Bracken McCloud is a philosophy professor or instructor, because there's a lot of philosophical references in this book, and Noah, I think, is kind of built and developed with Bracken McCloud's self in mind. At one point in the book, I have this quote marked because I just thought it was interesting, but at one point it says, Noah shook his head. I had to read this book in a philosophy class once. It was about how the fundamental question of life is, why shouldn't we just kill ourselves? That's kind of an important quote to the book when it becomes clear that they're all running out of time, that there is no good solution to getting out of this mess, that there's nothing a crew full of sick men can do to save themselves. And so the question does become, why are we delaying the inevitable? That's a big part of probably the second part of this book. It's something that Noah contemplates a lot. I have to concede that sometimes the most terrifying villain is simply nature, the environment. And that is astonishingly well done in Stranded. While the last 80 pages are exciting for the conclusion of the book, the whole beginning of the book is really suspenseful, mostly due in part to man versus nature. That's how it feels. Like these characters can keep fighting this, but ultimately exposure and isolation is going to kill them. Like there's no doubt about it. And so Bracken McCloud just beautifully illustrates the villainous elements of nature, and I was cold. This book made me cold. So I recommend reading it with a blanket. If you look it up on, say, Amazon, for example, it's going to eventually narrow down its department into horror. I don't know that I would call this book a horror. I think that I went into it thinking that it was a horror because I feel like it's marketed that way, and I feel like there's more attention drawn to some less important parts of the book than you think. And so I wouldn't call it a horror. It has some horrifying elements in it, especially in the last 80 pages. However, the majority of the book is build up, and the majority of the book is instances of action and suspense, and it just reads more like a thriller to me. The characters in this book that I liked. The characters in this book that I hated. I think the characterization was well done, and I was really impressed with Bracken McCloud's writing. It was a really interesting book for me, and like I said, those last 80 pages were really super exciting. I just had that disconnect in the middle of the book. But all in all, this is a really good, creepy kind of read. It's sort of an easygoing creep. It's not going to be 298 pages of gasp. It's sort of going to be like a something is slowly creeping up behind you kind of thing until blah over the last 80 pages. So I think that that's all that I have for Stranded by Bracken McCloud. Another really good addition to this October series that I'm doing. I highly recommend this book. Just don't go into it expecting horror. If you've read Stranded, let me know what you thought. Let me know if you think the same thing that I do about how this book is classified. If you have any other experience with Bracken McCloud, I'd love to hear about that too. Thank you so much for watching, you guys, and I will see you all very soon.